our Almighty God, Creator of heaven and earth, Father and lover of our soul, you sit on your throne of mercy and rule with your love and faithfulness. You are full of grace. We acknowledge your presence in our lives. Nothing is hidden in your eyes, even our challenges and struggles in life. We come to you with faith. We ask not only for our daily spiritual bread, but to seek your forgiveness and undeserving favor to heal our land, our family members, our friends and neighbors, even our enemies with COVID-19 and other diseases. Holy Spirit, help us to deepen our faith and see the opportunity to believe, obey, and worship. As we face this pandemic, you are Lord and God. Encourage us and change our hearts, not to fear, but to be full of hope and find ourselves praying and meditating your word. We believe no works of the enemy prosper to your children. Abba, Father, we believe that your Son Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior. He is the truth and our salvation. Hear our prayers, O Lord, and most of all, not our will, but thy will be done. We pray this in Jesus' name, the name above all names, who was and is to come. Amen.
Naghahatid saya sa mga Pinoy, mga kanta at programang Tatak Pinoy. Napapanood at napapakinggan kahit saan ka man. Streaming worldwide. In South Manila, this is V81 Radio.
Malayo ka man sa iyong pamilya, dito ay hindi ka nag-iisa. Tiyak ito'y iyong hahanap-hanapin, dahil ito ang nagpapasaya sa atin. Kahit nasaan ka man, ito'y mapapakinggan.
Oh,
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program anchors and producers and do not necessarily reflect the policies and position of this station. Discover the best kept secrets in metaphysics, law of attraction, science, and spirituality, and listen to practical mystics from around the world. Let's open Pandora's box with Reverend Reg Stan, your metaphysical minister, here in Practical Magic, your practical mystic source, only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Satnam, everyone. Happiest New Year to all of you, and I'm so happy and grateful that we actually finished the first season of Practical Magic. And I want to thank my co-producers, Sir Charlie, Sir Rolly, and the staff, Abby, Dax, Dean, Ralph, and Harty. So thank you all for being present. This show is also made possible by all the efforts of people working behind the scenes. And at the same time, we are grateful to everyone who has guested in the show. And thank you to all my colleagues in the International Metaphysical Ministry for finding time to be here in V81 Radio. And at the same time, I want to thank Jennifer Hill and Dr. Kathleen Riley, who are some people from the Global Coherence, Global Coalition for Global Unity and Awake TV Network for guesting on the show. It's really amazing that you have the time to guest and share important messages from your book and at the same time the importance of coherence. So I'm very excited as well because the other day I was talking to one of my co-anchors and is also our big boss, Papa Gio, who is an anchor for V81 Radio in Los Angeles, California. And I'm so happy to share that he asked me, what are we really trying to achieve in the show and what are our future endeavors? So one thing that I shared with him actually is that I want more people to understand what metaphysics is all about, especially when we talk about the power of prayer and meditation, especially the power of our words. Because especially in the Philippines, we spend a lot of time conversing with each other. We live so close by each other. And most of us actually, we live together with our families and it's very rare that we move out. So we have a very little understanding of how our words, our perception actually shapes our reality and our life experiences. So I know my co-Filipinos to be very hardworking, very industrious, very devoted, and very compassionate people. But I know that it's also important for us to realize that if we truly understand how to work with, work consciously and at the same time apply that conscious work ethic with the understanding of how consciousness works, it will be a lot easier for us to actually demonstrate our goals in different areas of our lives. Because I am very sure that this January 3, 2021, and maybe even prior to this, you've already been thinking, what am I planning to demonstrate this year in the different areas of my life? How peaceful do I want to feel and at the same time, remaining peaceful while I have to take action towards demonstrating my goals. So it may be a goal in fitness, it may be a goal in deepening your personal relationship with Source, Energy, Christ, whatever name you'd like to call God, or you would like to improve the flow of money in your space or wealth consciousness. And at the same time, you would like to improve the quality of your relationships, or you even want something to happen in your career. And I'm so grateful that three of my friends and my colleagues actually took the time to be with us today, even if it's really, a different hour for them, just to share what their secrets are when it comes to visioning and at the same time getting the job done. So we want to be able to have that wishful thinking, but at the same time, not just that, but actually experience it for ourselves. And at the same time, I want to share how important it is to really have an understanding of universal laws and how we can actually work with it and how does our mind actually work. because when we understand these things, it will become easier for us to demonstrate whatever it is that we would like to enjoy in our lives. Because here in Practical Magic, we believe that part of our growth, there's going to be some challenges along the way, but it's also a matter of decision if you would like to enjoy the process. So, anyway, I want to welcome to our studio three of my colleagues. And you actually met the three of them already, so I'm not going to have a long introduction. But first, let me introduce someone who has been an inspiration for me when I first went to University of Metaphysics. She's also someone who started interviewing a lot of our colleagues. That's why it also became an inspiration to me how I was going to do the format for Practical Magic and how to introduce metaphysics to our guests because of her amazing example to me. So without further ado, let me welcome our expert in past life regression and also a doctor of metaphysics, Dr. Yolanda Dukes. So let's welcome her with a warm applause.
Hi, Reverend Reg. How are
Satnam,
you?
happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're so excited to have you back. And the last time you guested on the show, I know a lot of my friends actually consulted with you, and they're actually very pleased with their consultations with you. And one of them even said, if I'm going to rate my experience with Dr. Dukes, it's going to be 5 gold stars for
Oh,
her.
yay.
And
That's
and we were
awesome.
talking about it in the if you're gonna give someone a rating of 5 being the highest, she said she's gonna give you 5 gold stars for her experience. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's
And
awesome. Thank you.
also, I would like to share to our viewers, it was also one of Dr. Duke's paying customers. And I want to emphasize that because most of the time when people talk about metaphysics, energy healing, past life regression, and people don't really see a tangible exchange, people seem to have this notion that because you don't have a tangible exchange, people are not aware that services like this are actually paid. But yes, we do pay for services like this because all the more you will see the psychological benefit of paying for services because what we actually pay for is on a psychological level, the things that we value. So all the more you're able to enjoy and have that emotionally satisfying experience when you pay for services like this. So, of course, I have to say that because I get that question a lot. Why people pay for services like a past life regression or any form of energetic healing or a card reading. So, our
Well,
next guest,
of
yes,
course,
Dr. Lutz.
go ahead.
Yes, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say they do have tangible proof when they after they have a session with me. You have a consultation, you have your video. So that whole discussion where that wisdom and that perspective is shared, you can watch that forever.
Wow, fantastic. So actually, it was one of the comments as well of one of your clients that she did enjoy the experience of the video that you provided her. So thank you for that. So our next guest is actually our marketing expert, and he is also an ordained minister of the International Metaphysical Ministry. She's also one of the most powerful speakers that I've met, and I distinctly remember our topic about discussing athletes where we talked about the likes of Michael Jordan, Cristiano Ronaldo, and those are some of my athletes that I truly admire. And she was saying, when athletes are totally focused and immersed in their training, they're able to make manifest whatever it that is in them, that is made in the image and likeness of God. And it was just a totally wow experience for me. So without further ado, let's welcome Tina Brinkley Potts.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Satnam, Tina, thank you so much for finding time to be here. You are one of our most phenomenal speakers that we had on the show that really stuck with me when you mentioned it. So thank you for sharing it because when you're in momentum of a conversation with the people around you, you don't know what's actually going to stay in the viewer's consciousness. But for me, it totally resonated with me. So I know that's really something that was, I wouldn't know how you would say it if it's channeled by spirit, or, it was just something from your heart that you were able to point out. And I needed to hear it. And I'm very sure that a lot of our listeners also needed to hear it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're so glad to have you here. I know you were in Nadine Benjamin's Safe at Home sessions, her show in UK the other day.
Yes.
So how was the experience?
Oh, it was wonderful to start the new year off with talking about the challenges of 2020 and how to turn them into blessings.
Yeah.
Was, that was a great way to start this year, so that we can remember that energy can be harnessed and literally used and transformed into our blessings. I was really excited to talk about that.
Thank you so much for sharing it. Especially today, we're gonna talk about visioning, and at the same time, how do you really get the job done? Because when so many things are happening, people get confused what to prioritize. So thank you for that, Tina. And our next guest is actually someone whose work I truly admire. He has incredible devotion and passion for Wicca. And by the way he talks and shares Wicca with all of you, how much he has devoted himself for many years in the subject of Wicca. And at the same time, I love the fact that he has a birch tree in his backyard. It just lights me up when we talk about it, because you can see how incredibly devoted he is into this. And at the same time, when he talks about the importance of how we're all supposed to wake up, remember how interconnected we all are. It's not enough that we're all just wanting to manifest more financial prosperity, but at the same time, we also have to allot a portion of our resources to go back to Mother Earth. Because whatever it is that we're all faced with right now, we know that somewhere in the way we've managed our resources, there's an imbalance. So I'm so happy to have with us tonight, because it's evening here in the Philippines, Reverend Adam Hayden, who's also an ordained international metaphysical minister. Welcome, Reverend Adam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here again.
Yes, we're so happy to have you here. And, it's just the time difference, but my client and I, who's in Netherlands, is also excited to meet you and work with you for the wonderful work that you're doing with Vika, because people actually want to understand interconnectivity, especially how being centered in our higher consciousness, our higher selves, how that actually brings into a more empowering place where you can be more of service to the planet, the rest of your community. So I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm very sure that the three of you have tips for how we're supposed to envision 2021 and how to actually take action, how to actually balance both, where so many things are happening around you, but here you are, you have a goal, and you actually have to get things done. So first, I want to ask Dr. Dukes, with you, because I know that you've finished your doctorate, and I just see you finish one thing after another. So I'm so amazed that you're able to deliver results. 1 minute you're doing your shows for perspective metaphysics, intuitive insights, and then the next thing I know is that you've finished another doctorate degree in University of Metaphysics. So how do you actually start your year? Like, how do you envision things for yourself in the different areas of your life?
Well, first is figuring out what I want. That's really what it comes down to, figuring out what I want, and then I make an action plan to get there. It's not complicated.
Fantastic. So, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Dukes. And before I elaborate, before I forget, because most people, especially here in the Philippines, they're just beginning to open up their consciousness about the topic of visioning, why it's so important to set goals, especially when you finished your first college degree, a lot of us actually feel that you're done with your first college degree. Why are you going to study again? So a lot of us end up just working very hard and not studying other things. But we all know that if you actually want to elevate your results, elevate your life experience, it also requires that you learn something new in order to raise your vibration. So, why do you think is visioning important? And what to you is visioning, Dr. Dukes?
Well, first, visioning is important because the first metaphysical understanding is that a thought is a thing. It does something,
Mhm.
it goes somewhere. So once you empower that thought with what you truly want, it begins to manifest for you.
Mhm.
So trusting, believing, and envisioning, imagining, pretending, those are all actions that you can take to help you along that path, to energize that path that you want to take.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. And how about you, Reverend Tina? What's your take on visioning? Why is it important? Why is it important for people to have goals? Some people keep saying, what if I'm just the type of person who doesn't want to have goals and I'm already fine with what is? What's your take on it?
Well, if someone was to say, I'm just a person who doesn't have goals, I would probably challenge that a little bit. I would ask them what they're afraid of, because deep down, we were all meant to expand. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons that we're here. So I wouldn't accept that answer. The other thing that I would want to say is that. Just because we weren't taught to use all of our faculties, all of the
Mhm.
gifts that we have, um, when you begin to start using them, and one of them is visioning, when you begin to start using them, you will start to see what seems like practical magic, right? Like you'll start to see
Mhm.
where things will just show up. One of the beautiful things that I love about taking the bachelor's portion of the University of Metaphysics was right in the very first module. Dr. Masters talked about being able to prove God, that, we've been taught, some people are literally walking encyclopedias, I think was the words he used, but can't really demonstrate. What's the sense if we can't demonstrate? And visioning helps you demonstrate. So I love how it all just comes together, and I think that's probably one of the most powerful things you can do.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Reverend Tina. It's such a fantastic thing to hear. I agree. It's so important to demonstrate whatever it is that you've learned to improve your personal life. But before I proceed and ask Reverend Adam the question, can we all just go to our personal page or the Practical Magic page so that your followers can actually watch the interview? So now I'm going to Practical Magic page and I'm going to share it so that the rest of our viewers can actually see it. All right. So, yes. So there I'm able to share it and so that when our friends have questions about our show today, they'll also be able to answer it. And I know that a lot of them actually have questions about goals and intention setting. So anyway, Reverend Adam, Satnam, it's so nice to have you back. And I know the other night it was actually full moon, perfect for intention setting and visioning. So in the component of Vika, as a philosophy, why is it important to actually have a vision and why is it important to keep taking action towards that vision?
Well, in in Wicca magic, one of the basic principles and stuff is you have to have intention. Now,
Mhm.
intention is a type of energy. It's an interconnected wave. And so when we envision and we draw up energy, energy that's within us and in the earth, we
Mhm.
have to focus that energy. And so in our spell work, intention is prime key, because even just having that thought, like Dr. Dukes had mentioned, is, without having that thought, how are you going to manifest um, your goals for life? And the whole point of spells and stuff is to bring change in our world for our benefit.
Wow. I didn't know that, so it's so nice to hear that that the purpose of spells is to actually, produce something that's gonna be to your advantage. And I know Vika reminds us that as long as it doesn't harm anyone, then go ahead. And
Exactly.
one of the things that I distinctly remember from our conversation is that you were reminding people that, even with the resources or the material success that we're all thinking that we're going to manifest, we're all still putting ourselves in the space where we realize our connection to Mother Earth. And can you please expand more why it's so important for us to realize that?
Well, I think the most important thing to realize is that, the entities in the world around us, they have personality, they have personhood. These are the
Mhm.
forms and forces of our natural world. And just as we can have relationships, among human beings, we can't
Mhm.
sit there and sideline those entities that were there that taught us all of our crafts of living. We can't get lost in the fact that we're not the only species on this planet. And we've kind of gone more into transcendentalism without bringing
Mhm.
it back home completely, because there's a whole other world that we may have actually forgotten in our quest for, material substance. And I think it's
Yeah.
about time, that, us as metaphysicians and stuff, that we need to, it's not that we don't know, because we do. I think we need to have more conversations with, the people we come across, in our practices, you know, being members of the IMM.
Yes.
I'd like to see more of that.
Yeah.
I'd
Thank you
like
for
to see more
sharing it.
conversations with trees.
Well, that too.
It's
That
like
too.
we've forgotten, yeah, on that quest for the bigger, the better. We've forgotten that we are part of nature. We're not
Yeah.
separate from it. And I think that's what's coming is this big reminder. So when we're manifesting, it's important to not damn what is happening because as they say, what you damn damns you back. So if you're
Yeah.
on lockdown, say this is the best lockdown there ever is. I am having the best lockdown. I have plenty of time to explore new things. My life is wonderful. Everything is going to be great. I now have just more time than I've ever thought that I could have. And I can be creative. I can rest if I need to. I can sleep if I need to. I can have time to love myself more. Make it the best doggone lockdown of 2021.
Totally.
Yeah. Thank you
Wow,
so
and
much, Dr. Dukes.
Dr. Dukes, like when you think about it, look at how the nature has started coming back into areas where they haven't seen as many animals and things because of this pandemic, because of things have slowed down. Like being able to see certain parts of the sky in different, like in California, where they couldn't see it for a long time just because of this pandemic. So I totally agree with what you just said. It's amazing. Hmm.
Yes.
I
Thank you for
I
sharing
believe
it. And
I believe it's
yeah, go
time
ahead.
and stuff that we remember, the covenants we had with Mother Nature, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be here now. Honest.
Yes.
But go
Yes.
ahead.
It's
Yes.
really amazing. And on the subject of trees, since we're talking about it, one of the things that I learned about trees is that they're so different from the way human beings are, because the moment they see limitations in their own language, because they don't communicate the way we communicate, what they do is to veer away from darkness and to keep moving towards the sun. So because they keep finding ways to be in the sun's guidance so that they can flourish, what happens is every time there's a limitation for trees, then what happens to them is they grow so tall, for trees that grow so tall. They grow so tall, and at the same time they grow their roots so deep. And no wonder, because that's their mindset, or that's their culture. Because I'm not sure if they have the mind that we speak about in metaphysics.
The
So
nature, your nature.
yeah, and thank you for that, Dr. Dukes. The amazing thing is they live longer than us, and at the same time, one of the things that I learned from that book, The Hidden Life of Trees, is that, when someone is doing poorly in the kingdom, they don't say, okay, because you're not doing so well, we're just going to leave you behind. Apparently, even if they're not someone who's part of the family of that particular group, they still find a way to nourish that particular plant, because they know that they need the ecosystem to thrive. So even if in the moment, or for a period of months, that this particular plant, or even for years, and it's non-performing, it's like a non-performing asset to them, they still find a way to make sure that it is nourished, because they know that the whole forest will not thrive if someone is actually left behind. And something that I learned is that, when you find the smell in a particular space in the forest and it doesn't smell good, it's because they're actually trying to drive away that particular person or animal so they can protect themselves. So I'm just so amazed that they have their own system of making their ecosystem work. But like what Dr. Duke said, as human beings, sometimes we forget that we're actually part of nature. And it's crazy, because the thing that we're experiencing globally is, we know that it's either people are ignorant about climate change, or people have just total disregard for what's happening, and people don't see how things are actually interconnected. So in terms of visioning, because we have our personal goals to begin with, what do you think is actually the best way for us to include the rest of the ecosystem in our personal agenda for the year? Let's begin with you, Reverend Adam.
I would say it all goes back to relationship. When we take from the land, we've got to pay something back for the services we do as metaphysical ministers and stuff. There's a payment of coin. One of my great teachers, Peter Padden, he taught the concept of gold for gold, silver for silver, and there are certain payments to be made for the debt we have by merely even existing, because if we take so much from the world around us, it is literally our life, and we should pay something back. So even if it's just keeping a compost pile and nurturing the plants in the area, you will build a relationship. And as it concerns visioning 2021 and stuff, is our whole world's about relationships. What we're doing right now is about relationships. And if we bless the land will bless us. And
Yes.
we need to
Wow.
remember
Thank you for that reminder. I'm sure that a lot of our friends who are now into setting their goals, or maybe they have a pen and paper with them, and watching the show, they're probably taking note now of, how am I going to plan my money, effort, and time? How am I going to allocate these resources so that I can be a more productive citizen, first and foremost for myself? And then how can I, share this to the rest of the community? Because one thing that I really like about our university and the International Metaphysical Ministry is that we are reminded to be of service to others in whatever way, shape, and form that we have, because we have different creative talents and abilities. And that's why I think it's so important to realize that, number one, just to share, I have a very positive attitude and perspective about money, because I believe in all the good that it can do. And I know that Tina also resonates with this mindset. It actually solves a lot of problems. And at the same time, it's also, there's a part where we also have to realize that part of having that kind of money, I love what Oprah Winfrey said, being reminded that the more you have, the more you should also realize the weight of your responsibility, so that whatever good that you have, and especially if it's more than the usual, you also have that spiritual responsibility to distribute it wisely. Please share your thoughts on this, Tina.
Well, I believe that there is a law of circulation. So, things need to move. And one of the things that I think it was said by Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, he said that the pain pushes until the passion pulls. And
Mhm.
one of the things that really resonates with me, because I believe you have an internal steering, uh, something that is stirring up inside of you. And a lot of times you might ignore it because maybe your parents taught you one thing, and this thing that's stirring inside of you goes against what they've been saying. And also, I also believe that because we know with metaphysics that everything is created at least twice, once in the mind and then before it becomes physical. And because of that, the things that I also know is I also know that there were a lot of things left behind by our ancestors. So our ancestors could have been calling for more money because they were struggling to pay bills and this, that, and the other. And you have the ability to really get centered and really begin to talk to your environment around you and call forth all that is good that is meant for you. And then you're able to use those things and express them through you in positive ways. And the more that you do that, source will continue to give to you, because perfect self-expression, I mean, that's really your job in this world, is to express who you are, express the thing that source is calling you to do, and then all good things will be bestowed unto you. And I know that that kind of sounds simple. It isn't, because we're getting through all of the muck of all of the belief systems that we've been taught from whoever, teachers, TV,
Yeah.
relatives, the society. But there are things that are meant to express through you, and that could be more money.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, Reverend Tina. And I want to share, many decades ago, during the Great Depression in the United States, one of my favorite authors, Dr. Catherine Ponder, was a new minister for Unity organization. And at the same time, at that time, she was also assigned to discuss about the spiritual basis of money. So in one of her workshops, she would tell people to have a play money
Hmm.
around them in their pockets, in their wallets. And one of her attendees in the workshop would tell his circle of friends when they ask him, how's business doing? So everybody was anticipating that he will also talk about hard times. But this guy kept saying, business is wonderful because there's gold dust in the air. Business is wonderful because there's gold dust in the air. Business is wonderful because there's gold dust in the air. So amazingly, many decades since that depression, and the book is actually available for everyone to read, because now we're experiencing something similar. So what happened is that guy was actually able to make a lot of sales that most people weren't expecting, because a lot of people were talking hard times. And I also want to emphasize the value of having a play money. And it's so important, because the other day one of my family members asked me, why do I give away play money? And almost not realizing how most of our family members or friends, they're well-meaning, but they don't realize that sometimes their statements can actually uh, not be felt that way by the receiver. So anyway, I was telling that family member, another story that I want to share. Robert Collier, whose family actually started the Collier Encyclopedia. He's also a metaphysical author. And in one of the stories that he shared, an actual story, someone actually wanted to go to Cambridge University and needed $10,000 at that time. And that was many decades ago when the book was published. So what that girl would do, she would count every night before going to bed a sum of $10,000 for a play money. And you know what? It didn't take long. One of her aunts sent her that amount of money to be able to go to college. And then another thing, a client of mine sent me a magnet version of a euro play money. And then I put it in my vision board. And I didn't know at that time, 3 years ago, how I was gonna attract online clients for my coaching and my metaphysical services. But of course, naturally, when that lockdown happened, I was able to acquire clients from Europe and in the US. And it's just amazing because I know that having playthings like this is a form of planting seeds and consciousness so that you can actually demonstrate it in real life. So personally for me, I have a vision board, but at the same time, I'm also aware that there are supposed to be things that you need to do. Not just visioning it, but you also have to take action. So I want to turn this over to Dr. Dukes because I know that it takes an incredible amount of energy to sustain your vision and have an action plan.
Most definitely. Well, as I said, it does, of course, start with a thought. And then you have to can only take things as far as you can take them. You know what I mean? You can't go from point A to point B without traveling down the road at this point. So you have to, depend upon what it is you're attempting to manifest. I wanted something at one point. Oh, a beautiful ring. How am I ever going to be able to afford this beautiful ring? So I just started pretending that I had this ring. I started looking for it in magazines. I'd look at my hands. Oh, this is so beautiful. Oh my goodness, this is just the most gorgeous thing ever. And then I did indeed find the ring, which would have been like $30,000, but I found a jeweler that makes fabulous fakes. So I found the same ring for like $100, and it's just as gorgeous. So
Yeah.
I still took the action, which was finding the ring and still loving the ring and wanting the ring, pretending I had the ring. And it manifested the way it manifested for me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Dukes. And speaking of rings, I actually have the same thing. And, I learned that when you have gold in your body, whatever part, whether it's a bracelet, a necklace, or your finger, or an anklet, it actually activates your receiving capacity. I learned it from the Egyptian practices that when you wear gold, it has more to do with receiving. And when you wear silver, it has more to do with balancing your giving. So, and no wonder we know how prosperous Egypt was during their glorious days. So I'm very sure that the metaphysical practitioners at that time had rhyme and reason to actually say it. But I agree with you. I actually have something stainless. It's not exactly what you were saying that it's not $30,000, but at least it activates your childlike capacity to get you moving. And at the same time, the first thing that you mentioned earlier about pretending, please tell our audience how pretending is so important in the manifesting or demonstrating process.
Well, because depending upon where you are in your journey, like I said, you can only go where you can go. That latitude is going to vary from person to person. So if you are in a very, very small place and you're dreaming of a much larger place, You can't knock the walls out for it to become a larger place. That's a
Yeah.
perfect opportunity to pretend,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going over to the West Wing now, even though that's just a wall away. But
Yeah.
pretending you have everything will indeed bring you everything. If you can become so satisfied with the thought, then what does it matter when you're happy with
Yeah.
the thought?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Dukes. When you mentioned that, I'm actually reminded when it comes to manifesting a love partner. Because when people want to manifest a love partner, they're intending a particular person. And let's face it, there are times when this particular person you'd like to manifest may be available. Congratulations to you, things work out. But if the person is not actually available, and then you end up getting into situations that may compromise your own happiness. What's your take on it, Dr. Duke? How shall people manifest love partners?
Well, I can tell you how I manifested a love partner. And I, again, made things very, very simple. Pretended he was already there. Oh,
Mhm.
he loves this perfume. He loves me in this color. He loves these sheets. I just started to pretend that he was there. And before you know it, somebody was flirting with me. And before you know it, here, boom, we're in Texas.
Yeah, um, amazing. And we know that after this January, I'm sure we're gonna talk about Valentine's Day and the dating scene, but we're gonna reserve it for that. But in terms of, for me, when you have a vision and you really have a big goal that you'd like to achieve, especially if it's a company that you'd like to manifest, or even a ministry, I know that having a romantic, intimate partner is so important. And it's so important for you to actually share the same values or at least complement each other, because otherwise it's going to be very stressful. And instead of that person helping you out grow and flourish, it becomes a more limited situation. So, Reverend Adam, what's your take on this? When you have a partner, and I'm sure you experience this because you're also growing your ministry, how important is it when it comes to visioning and getting the goals done? How does a love intimate partner affect the success of your demonstrating your vision?
Immensely. My whole work and stuff has to do with relationships, whether a love interest or, the birch in my backyard. It's all about communication and transferring of energy. And if you and your partner don't vibe at the right frequency together, nothing but chaos is going to ensue. Especially as you're trying to pursue, your own destiny, the destiny that you decide you want. Um, if your partner is not copacetic to that and stuff, it's just going to tear you down, tear you apart, and eventually it'll come to the physical realm and something will have to give. And so
Yeah.
the partner you choose is I view it like this, and I can't remember where I got the idea in the book, but it's the whole idea that, we are all single, entities and stuff. We are not halves of, a whole. We are a whole in ourselves. And so when we meet a partner and stuff, we got to recognize that they are also whole unto themselves, and you just happen to be following the same path. And so long as that path, is the same, you communicate back and forth, your individual enterprises will turn into something completely different, and it will be a complete whole multiplied. The concept of three times three in Wicca is kind of that same principle and stuff. With us, the harm none law and stuff says that things will return to you threefold. And while I'm not copacetic to the mathematics of it, but it's the same basic principle. And so and that's kind of how I see it, you know, is that as long as you're following the same path, and are willing to help each other achieve your individual goals, I think any envisioning you have, any spell work, because all that considering paper money and stuff like that. That is spell work in my
Mhm.
lifestyle path. And so,
Yes.
it's all about harmonies and energy. And I think that having the right partner is, you know, is
Yes.
special.
Thank you so much for sharing it, Reverend Adam. I love what when you talked about that having the paper money is actually spell work. And you know that spell work is actually a form of prayer. Every time we're conversing with each other, we're casting spells. Every time we're projecting our hopes and our dreams and the highest vision for our friends and family, it's a prayer. It's casting a spell. When our friends are actually down emotionally and they're not in the best position, whatever area of their lives, I'm sure that our friends or family members are also counting on our upliftment so that they can shift whatever limitation that they have and make it into something that will be a blessing, like what Tina mentioned earlier. How do you change that particular challenge into a blessing? Especially, I agree with you, Reverend Adam, the relationship topic. There's just so much energy interplay that can help you thrive, or that particular relationship can help you feel more limited about your situation because you're sharing energy. And I know Tina has a personal experience about how you're gonna come through out of a relationship that may not exactly bring out the best in you. Would you like to share that, Tina?
Well, I think um, the biggest part of it is that sometimes we don't really understand the energy that we're actually casting out. And
Mm-hmm.
so um, I like when Dr. Dukes was speaking and she was talking about how she started visioning someone being there right with her, loving the fragrance that she was wearing. But most people are casting out a yearning instead of this thing from joy. And so that yearning must be met. And most of the time, we don't understand that that's what we're really doing. And so when you also have a belief system that this person, I think Adam was just talking about the two halves versus coming from a whole space. So after I got divorced, I made a decision that I wanted to be single for a while because I didn't want to bring the same energy into a relationship, because the things that I owned, especially going through this metaphysical journey, is that I'm calling things into my life. I might
Yeah.
not know why I'm calling them into my life, but I have to understand that I am a co creative force with every single event that happens in my life. And so, taking responsibility for that, I decided I wanted to be single until I knew that I was whole. Um, One of the things in this world has been where women need to kind of stuff themselves down to be with a partner. And I know that that can't be my version. I have a mission that I'm co creating with my source. And that is
Yes.
first and foremost for me. And that relationship with a partner will have to fit into that the same way
Yes.
I will have to fit into his. But until I find that version, the version where I don't need to change the whole that I now am, then that doesn't, I just want to make sure I'm coming from a whole place. Most people aren't coming from a whole place. They're looking for someone to fix something, or to fix the loneliness that they feel. And only source can do that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing it, Reverend Tina. But sometimes I think, you can just date people every now and then. I mean, it's just a part of you where you're trying to enjoy the experience of having to converse with people, get to know people, enjoy their own company, and not necessarily immediately leading to a relationship. Because I think sometimes that the pressure is very high because of all these expectations that you have to be a couple right away. And especially like what you mentioned, if you're trying to accomplish a big goal and you know that your mission with Source comes at your first priority, and you know that the person will just have to complement whatever lifestyle that you have, then it really takes an incredibly understanding, patient partner, devoted partner to you to actually make it happen. So I think sometimes it's just nice to actually enjoy people's company and then have fun enjoying the conversation and then see where it leads both of you. So how about you,
We can
Dr.
vision
Dukes?
it. We can
Yeah.
vision it. Like Dr. Duke
Definitely.
was saying, we can vision that the person that is going to compliment me loves Source as much as I do. The person who's going to compliment me knows who they are inside of Source, so that they're not looking for me to replace something that they're already getting. Like, so we can be very intentional. Like, relationships, money and relationships are the two things that we have really come from broken places, right?
Mhm.
Normally we're approaching from broken places. And so when you become very intentional of saying, okay, wait a minute, I can do something different here. I know sometimes, especially as all of us talked on here today, that we're kind of making some of these things kind of simplistic, but they really are. And we've put all of these things in the way. It's like when you begin to unwind that from where you are, as Dr. Duke said, I can't give you something that is beyond where you are. You have to start where you are and start going, okay, this isn't what I want. So what can I do differently starting right now to get closer to the thing that I want? And I don't think people really take that approach in relationships. I think it's immediately, if there isn't somebody there, they're looking for somebody else, and they haven't really looked within. And that's my personal opinion, but that's what I just believe.
And I want to
Yes.
comment too. I see people wanting particular relationships. And I just say, if you can envision yourself being with somebody else, that's your problem. It's not working out because you cannot envision yourself being with somebody else. So when you let that go, love finds you. We are love. We attract love. It's the way we
Yeah.
work. It's when we cut it off, we go, nope, nope, nope. I can only have this one person, but I'm only in love with this one person. I feel the best one. You don't know what the best is. You haven't lived your entire life. You don't know what the best kiss is, the best sex, the best. You don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like
Thank you.
wanting something from a very limited point of view keeps you limited.
Yes. Thank you for sharing it, Dr. Dukes. And it's very important and something that I can relate to because when you're younger and you're with someone and you're very much in love with them, it's like your whole world revolves around them. And then you break up with someone and then your whole world is shattered because of that breakup. It really feels like that, as if you can't live without the other person. So of course, when you weren't really thinking in metaphysical terms, it felt like your whole world came crashing down. But we'll expand more in this later, and we'll just pause for a short commercial.
You got it.
No, sounds fine.
We'll be back shortly. This is Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Connected ka na ba para laging updated sa mga bagong shows, promos, trending news, viral videos, events, o patok na OPM hits? Just follow us on Facebook at V81 Radio Manila. Simple lang, itype lang ang letter V81 Radio Manila. O di ba madali lang? Kaya i-like at i-follow na. Want to see who will bring home the win? Get ready for Napalm Music Awards. Now back to Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Everyone. My name is Reverend Reg, and I'm here again for Practical Magic, where we talk about metaphysics, science, spirituality, and what are actually the practical metaphysical tools available to us, especially today, January 3, 2021. We're talking about visioning and getting the job done. So we all have goals. Or maybe you're someone doesn't really understand how important it is to have a vision set at the beginning of the year and how you're going to achieve your goals, which is part of that vision. So I'm happy to share with everyone that I have here three of my colleagues from the International Metaphysical Ministry, where we're talking about visioning for 2021 and how do we actually get the job done, considering many things can actually happen during the year with many twists and turns. So we're talking about relationships and how important it is to actually have a partner that will complement your lifestyle or your particular vision, especially Dr. Dukes was saying earlier, what do you actually, most people don't demonstrate the kind of partner that they have because they're insisting in only one partner. Maybe it's an ex or someone you've gotten used to. So now I'm going to give the floor to her so that she can answer the question.
Hi, everybody. Okay. Which part of the question did you want me to answer?
Yeah, the part where you were saying most people don't manifest the partner that they want because people are just insisting on one person in their lives. And you were mentioning that we are love. So naturally, when we let go of the limitation or the block, then the highest and best, or maybe the one that matches your frequency at that time, you draw into your life.
Oh yeah, with fun and adventure. I mean, I can imagine the people I would have attracted if I hadn't let go. And I didn't say, oh, I have to find somebody who is a fellow metaphysician and he must live his life such and such way. We live in such a contrast and we enjoy it for the purposes of conversation. We don't need to be
Yes.
involved in the same things at the same time. You know, he's happy on his own, I'm happy on my own, and then we come together and we make a completely different kind of happiness.
Yeah. I love what you mentioned, Dr. Dukes. But I've seen this a lot, especially with energy healers and clients and metaphysicians, because I think metaphysics in itself is very interesting. And when you meet a client who's actually very problematic, and then they see that their life changes for the better, working with a life coach or a metaphysical minister, somehow they form a particular attraction for that life coach. So they end up studying the same thing, even if it's not necessarily the thing that lights them up. It's just that having to share the lifestyle. So, and I know that because in the past, before I became part of University of Metaphysics, and I was an ordained minister, you know how powerful you can be when you realize the law of attraction and then you do energy work. There's something in you that basically lights up, and other people are actually drawn to that light or to your aura. Yeah. So, before University of Metaphysics and the International Metaphysical Ministry, I would meet people and they become so interested in you. I know a big part of it is because metaphysics, energy healing in itself is already very interesting. And at the same time, people are actually drawn to people who are helping them out, make their lives better. Even if you're not a metaphysician or a life coach, even if you're just someone who's actually a presence that's offering some form of progress in someone else's life, I know that there's a level of, is it appreciation, or sometimes people get attracted to people helping them out. And I find myself that way with some people, but you know later on you realize that you get attracted to them because of the progress that you're making along the way. And most of the time, even if it's not a relationship with an energy healer or a metaphysical minister, it's the energy of seeing that your life was in a limited space and now you're attracted to someone who's offering more expansion, joy, and fulfillment. And sometimes, because of that particular experience, I think most people who are, you know, secured in themselves, they don't really actually want to be in a very committed, they want to marry you kind of relationship. And a perfect example for me is Oprah Winfrey. You know how I'm not sure how many of you watch her interviews, but Oprah keeps saying, she's reached a certain point in her life where she's so happy with herself. Yes, she does have a partner, but at the same time, because of the mission that she feels that she has in her life, she's first committed to fulfilling that vision, and then the relationship is something that's a bonus to her life. So if I'm getting what Reverend Tina was saying earlier, is it along those lines?
Kinda. A little bit. Like I really resonate with what Dr. Dukes was saying.
Mm.
I wanted to learn, and I mean that's one of the reasons why I'm at the University of Metaphysics, right? Like I wanted to learn like what makes people tick. I love people, I love technology, and I love source, like, all three. And I'm like, okay, how does all of this fit together? But Dr. Duke said something. She said that everything's love, and when you are focusing on like that one person, that you are cutting off the flow of love, right? And
Mm.
when you just open back to the space of love, the things you love will come to you. I
Mm.
love Florence Scovel Shinn. Game of
Mm.
Life, How to Play It. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And in that book, she also talks about how you actually attract the person that you want is by casting love to them and saying, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, and no matter who you are with, I just love you, because now you're casting a perfect love, and either that
Yes.
person or their equivalent is going to show up in your life. And so when I feel that things aren't coming to me that I want, that I'm focusing on, I look at it and go, okay, am I yearning for this thing? It doesn't have to be a person, it could be whatever, right? But am I
Mm.
yearning
Mm.
for it, or am I truly perfecting my love on it? And that question really helps me guide my life. Right now, I just choose to focus wholeheartedly. I've spent a lot of my life raising my children, helping raise my grandchildren, and all of those things. So now I'm spending so much time on me, spending so much
Mm.
time
Mm.
just to know what makes me tick. Spending so much time like saying, okay, how do I help with Black oppression? How do I help with poverty? Like, how do I help with those things? And that's where my love is right now. So I attract all things of that. So
Yes.
I love that you use the example of Oprah, but I just wanted to give a little bit of a different spin because I resonate so
Mhm.
much with what Dr. Dukes was saying.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing it. And one of the reasons why I love Oprah, because a lot of the things that she's actually talking about are actually metaphysical in nature. And of course, because she's a mainstream media personality, it's not like people are all of a sudden going to be interested about metaphysics in the way we're discussing it right now. And it's just that for me, I think she's one of the most amazing people who actually modeled for other women that you can really make something out of your life and be in your power and achieve something that's really wonderful for you career wise, and at the same time just allow that love partner to come to your space in the fullness of who you are, because I think one of the best things that I pick up from her is that, she keeps talking about her limitations in the past. And that's why, to me, she's very inspiring. And I think a lot of people as well, where she's talking about her limitations, but at the same time, she's able to freely shrug it off, with, with in a way that's humorous already, because she's moved past all that. So, anyway, Dr. Dukes, I know you have more to share about relationships, so please take the floor.
I have more to share about relationships. Oh my goodness. Oh, who do you want to know?
Yeah, you know what Tina was mentioning earlier, where she spent a lot of time, caring for other people. And now she's going back to the space where she's now finding more of what actually makes her tick, what actually lights her up. So I know in the past as well, we talked about how important it is to see yourself where you stand in everything in relation to your surroundings, in relation to the people around you, and at the same time, define who you are, where you know that other people have a perspective about you. They have a perspective about your capacity. They have a perspective about who you are. And you have to be able to stay in your power while other people have all these opinions about you. Because even in a love relationship, your intimate romantic partner can actually have all those opinions about you as well.
Well, what other people think of you is really none of your business.
Yes.
So
It's
holding on and trying to figure out what other people are thinking is only going to make you crazy.
Yes.
So if you're busy
yes.
standing in your own power, what do you care? I
Yeah.
mean, I just spent my life being, oh, you're weird this, you're weird that. Now I'm the most interesting person at the party. I don't care what people think. I don't care.
Yes. Dr. Dukes, what do you think is the most effective way to actually overcome that? Because it really takes a lot of, willpower and courage to actually remain in your truth, especially if you have to deal with your family members. For example, in the LGBTQ community, it's so difficult to actually stay in your power, and then you have to deal with the cultural upbringing. So, for instance, in my case, having to leave the family home and then constantly getting compared to what your other siblings are able to bring to the family, and you're not able to do the same thing. It's actually a lot of willpower on my part. Constantly getting compared. I know that affirmations help me a lot. Meditation has helped me a lot to remain in my power. But if you have other things to add, because it's actually one of the things that blocks a person from demonstrating their vision,
Well,
what are the other things that you'd
the
like to?
universe is reflective. So
Mhm.
if the issues are coming up and they're bothering you, that says more about you than it does about your family.
Mhm.
So if
Yes.
things are bothering you, ask yourself, why does this bother me?
Mhm.
And then deal with it on that level. But you have to be real with yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's the moment
Yes.
you change and you realize and take your thoughts away from them as far as empowering their negativity, then you
Mhm.
won't care.
Yes. Yes. So, for example, Dr. Dukes, because we know that being able to snap out of that particular negative talk, it's like casting a spell, Reverend Adam. How does one shift from that limited, feeling overpowered by other people, and then using Vika, for example, to overcome the situation, especially when it comes to dealing with the community, or the intimate relationships that you have. It can be a friend, it can be a family member.
Yeah, well, for me, my choice of religious pathway and stuff was actually the source of my childhood abuse. Being different put me into a lot of really tough situations. And so when I started manifesting psychic abilities and um, really starting to, needing the help to deal with, a lot of stuff that was going on in my life, I had no one there. It was actually a friend and stuff that's like, hey, dude, you know, did you know that there are these type of books out there? And so one of the first books that came into my hands was Wicca Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by Scott Cunningham. And that's what started my process. I was able to grasp on to, what little light I had in my life. And in a way, my intention became early on because of my psychic ability, people came to me for advice. And so I became kind of a wounded healer. And so my intention, as soon as I discovered, that world, the metaphysical world, it was like, that's what I wanted to be. That's what I wanted to do. And so I struggled. I struggled through so many horrible things. And in fact, I just recently broke through some really, really deep shadow work. And it was near the end of this cycle that I was working on when I actually had actually talked to Dr. Dukes, and actually was during her own session, and she comes up and says, "Blessings around the corner. You will manifest your dreams." And not even a couple weeks or so, next thing I know is I'm getting a message from you, Reverend Reg, and look at me now. This is my manifestation for all that shadow work, for all that stuff that I had to deal with as a child. The struggle,
Yes.
the pain, it rarefied me. It was like making a sword or something like that. I was being tempered from a very early age. This abuse started when I was, I want to say about 7 or 9, somewhere around there.
Mm.
And it was the intention that, well, I'm going through this. I am going to make sure no one else goes through this. And so through the power of
Yes.
intention, I'm here now. I just finished, some really heavy shadow work. Yolanda opened up the doorway. You came in, and I am now working on manifesting that dream. That is visioning once you right there.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing it. I love hearing it, Reverend Adam. And especially, it's not easy for anyone to actually put yourself in a vulnerable space and then talk about the things that you felt most insecure about, the things that aren't really making you look in your best light, so to speak. And thank you for sharing it, because it's, for me, although we keep saying that you have to change your focus of attention from uh, where you are to where you want to be. But of course, for the purpose of discussion, people actually want to know where your baseline is. What are we transforming from the experience? So they want to know the power of whatever metaphysical tools that we have before you were able to actually demonstrate the change. And thank you again, Dr. Dukes, because it seems to me that not only are my friends in the Philippines raving about your work, and we also have Reverend Adam, who spoke very nicely about your session with him. So thank you for that. And it's amazing because I know we still have so much to talk about, and although we have so little time right now, I want to talk about families, our siblings, our parents, those influences. Those things actually take so much of our energy, especially if you still live with them, and they can actually help you expand, or they can actually limit your results. Because over the years, for example, one of the things that I did research on was that we know Steve Jobs, he knew from the beginning that he was actually adopted. And because he felt adopted, no matter how successful he became with Apple, somewhere along the way, because of that feeling of being adopted, he didn't really feel that he belonged. So along the way, he would find himself in situations where he will be away from that particular group, whether it was his college degree in his college or the company, and then being taken out and then being taken back in, which is different from the experience of Bill Gates, because as early as possible, his parents were already very nurturing of him. and he knew that he was always going to be supported, so that every step of the way, even up to the time when Microsoft became very, very successful, he didn't have any patterns where he felt unsupported and he will self sabotage. We know that doing your inner work can actually help you make things a lot easier. For example, I have a friend, when we were kids, she always told me, you know, Reg, when I was growing up as an openly lesbian to my family, they were very supportive of me with whatever it is that I wanted to do. They would give me anything that I wanted. So I never had that in my consciousness that I was not wanted or that I can only ask for a little, because I felt the unconditional love of the people that surrounded me. And we were actually talking about this with some of our friends, and I told her, you know, in my case, it's so different because I always had to second guess if am I behaving according to what they would think is appropriate or not. And if I don't behave accordingly, then I may not be wanted. So somehow in my consciousness, that was constantly playing. So while I was growing up and I was trying to accomplish my goals, I didn't realize until I learned metaphysics and psychology how much of that programming actually caused me to self sabotage many, many times until I was able to meet the right teachers, meet the right healers who actually made me see that there was something in my past that was actually recreating the experience in my adult life. And I must be honest that even up to now, at my age 35, I would still see certain things in my childhood. Me initially, you wouldn't really say that that came from that experience, but all of a sudden, in your meditative experience, you're gonna get that aha moment. That's where it came from. Of course, it's also not easy to share, because when you talk about things like that to people who don't have the awareness of how certain things that happen to us actually recreates the experience in our adult life, it becomes, it almost always feels like you're the weird one. And you know that even when people say that you're the weird one, you know that you have basis for what you're saying. And people don't have an idea that certain things can actually be toxic mentally and emotionally, because a lot of people, especially in my place, still think that it's just words. It doesn't offend you because there's no physical harm done. What are your thoughts on this, Reverend Tina?
Um, well, Reverend Reg, the whole time you were talking, I almost wanted to interrupt you. And because I feel that there's a story that's still replaying. And the thing that I want to say is it wasn't for Steve Jobs. I've studied a lot about Steve Jobs, right? So the first thing I want to say about that is Steve Jobs carried a story along with him, and he never reframed it.
Mm-hmm.
And some, like, we as metaphysicians know something better. We know that starting right here, right now, we could reframe the story that you have with your family. Like, Reg, you have chosen to be who you are, and that is enough. And so if you start from there and go, you know what, they did the best with what they knew how, even if you just start with that sentence for a while, because you're now separating those things. You can begin to reframe these relationships so that when these same people show up the next time, even in the next 24 hours, they could show up and go, I'm so proud of you. Like, but because the story is still living and it's what you expect, because think about manifestation. You know that manifestation is what you believe and what you expect. If you are expecting expecting them to have that same relationship. So Dr. Duke said it, what people think of us is none of our business. But if
Yeah.
we're going to think about what they think of us, we can reframe it. Wow,
Yeah.
people around me think I'm amazing. People around me really support what I'm doing. People around me love me for exactly who I am. And if we start living from that space, guess what? Nobody can come into your bubble unless they are that. So
Yes.
some people will fall away, but then some
Yes.
people are going
Yes.
to show up differently because now you've changed what's resonating inside of you. That's really, really important. If nobody got anything out of this conversation today, we have a lot of reconciliation that needs to happen, whether it's the BGT community, whether it's women, whether it's Black people. There's been oppression and control happening in all kinds of demographics. But we can start to take our own power back by understanding thoughts become things. So those thoughts of how people treat you are still becoming things. So pull your thoughts back and start reframing your thoughts to what it is that you want in your life, with your family relationships, with the way people treat you in the store, with when you walk out of your home today, who you're meeting as soon as you walk out the door, when you're standing on the sidewalk. Start reframing those relationships and allow them to become what you want instead of carrying the stories of what you don't want. We really do have that power. We really do have that power, but we've been giving it away because we've been waiting for other people to validate us, and it is time to stop that.
That. Of course, I had to say it that way, in that manner, because I'm representing a particular community. And, I think it's so important. Actually, for me, I'm already done with it. But as far as representing the LGBTQ community, so many things of what people go through is not something that people are able to articulate in words. And I must say that I have come to the place where I'm able to be confident enough to be in a broadcast,
Yeah.
because I can be in a space where I can talk about the things that really caused me pain growing up. This time, not because I'm doing it just for myself, but because when you are young and you're an LGBTQ, you don't really realize that it was already programming that was actually limiting you. I didn't have any idea that it was limiting me. All the while, I just knew that I'm a bad person, because apparently my religion told me that if you're gay, then you're a bad person. So the only reason why I'm bringing it up is because, when there are LGBTQ adolescents and they're still stuck in stories like that with people that they're with, you don't really have an idea of what's good or bad, or what's limiting you and what's growing you. And part of the thing that Nadine and I were talking about is, we hope that we don't have to keep talking about things like this, because of course, naturally, for me and Nadine and other LGBTQ people, we don't want to keep sharing these stories, but we see the value of bringing it up so that we don't have to bring it up anymore, ever.
We can,
There.
we can bring them up from a source of strength now,
Yeah.
instead of being stuck in that pain, right?
Yeah.
Because if they're stuck in that pain, they're reliving it every day. But if
Yes.
now they go, oh my gosh, like I can tell you, my mother was an alcoholic. That is the
Yeah.
source of my strength.
Hmm.
Understanding that now and carrying it, it's a source of my strength. And you are doing such a wonderful thing where you're talking about these things in, like, broadcasting and talking about them. And now you're also starting to talk about the victory of it instead of the
Yeah.
victimization.
Yes.
This
Yes,
happened.
and remember who you are. You are the
Yes.
torchbearer. You are there to set an example. You are showing them what love is. You are expanding this idea in real time. So you are going to be met with what you feel is darkness for the sole purpose for you to shine your light there. What are you really
Yes.
doing wrong other than love?
Yes. So thank you for sharing that. Because you see, you know, when you're a kid in that space and it's in your head, and the reason why I brought it up, I have members of my prayer and meditation circle where they come to me and they tell me that although it may not be a big deal to other people, they now see how that mirror work because they're able to resonate with the story that I went through. It also helped them become more committed to, you know, community service, because the moment I got that narrative out of my consciousness where the LGBTQ people are second rate, because that's how I grew up. I didn't know any better when I was growing up. I just absorbed everything that I was hearing from the people around me. So when I read Dr. George Heason's book, God is male, female, gay, uh, and all genders, it liberated me so much because although I don't want to get that validation, let's face it, if you come from a religious space and all you were ever taught is that God is outside of you, there's a pressure for you to want to please the people around you, because all of us in some way you want to be accepted without realizing that you all you ever wanted was to accept yourself completely. So anyway, we have some more minutes. Sorry, I have to bring it up because, you know, it's something that I can't help but bring up because it was like the biggest chunk of my not moving forward, because I have to deal with all these things. And honestly, now that I'm doing this, the next thing that I'm getting is you're being arrogant. You believe in yourself so much. Where do you get that confidence? Uh, so
God, where else?
yeah, so you see,
It's never ending.
yeah. So I know that I'm not even aware anymore of how I'm able to deliver things, but I just know I have to deliver it from my heart space, whether it will, you know, resonate with other people or it may piss them off because other people are still not in alignment with this kind of topic. But it's just important for me to get it out because I know that once you're able to cut those limiting stories, it will help you also expand and grow and create opportunities for yourself and for others to have more space to shine. And another thing, thank you for bringing it up, how to have enough self belief, how to have enough conviction for the things that you actually feel are so important to you. Another thing that I want to bring up is blockages about procrastination. Why do we actually procrastinate? Because in the past, that thing I mentioned earlier was a source of my procrastination. Why do you think do people procrastinate, Reverend Tina?
There is normally something to do with something outside of you that's keeping you from doing it. And so again, it's how that person is going to react. What if I fail and people laugh at me? Like, it's normally something that's outside of you instead of remembering who you play for, and you play for your source. And so once you put it back in the right perspective, and even though it sounds like I'm saying that happens in two sentences, it happens by doing that shadow work, and it happens by doing that mirror work, and it happens by going and talking about your past lives. It happens by doing all of that work. But at the same time, again, we make it sound simple, but you just have to do the work. When you're procrastinating, it is normally from something that you deem is outside of you, instead of knowing all of the things you really have that's already there, that you already have everything on your pathway that you need to fulfill. Like, I think Denzel Washington said it one day when he was talking to some kids. he said that God can't put a desire in your heart if you don't already have everything you need to fulfill it. You might have to mold it. You might have to do the work. You might have to put in a little practice until you get there. But at the end of the day, you already have everything you need to fulfill that desire. So start taking those little steps to figuring it out.
Thank you for that, Reverend Tina. And I love Denzel Washington, by the way. You know, he has so much wisdom in him, and he has so much heart in everything that he does and all that he shares to his audience. And how about you, Reverend Adam? What's your take on why do people actually procrastinate to get their goals done?
Because they haven't reached the point of finally having that aha moment. They
Mhm.
tend to turn around when the going gets rough. I mean, for myself, honestly, what we're doing right now is what I've always wanted to do, like I've mentioned before. Um, but for me, there was always an excuse. I didn't have the right mic. My mic didn't work. Oh, my laptop's not fast enough. But it always went back to the fact that I felt what we in psychology, because I have a bachelor's of science in psychology as well, is the imposter syndrome. And so that held me back until I finished my shadow work. And I understand it now. But the thing is I kept procrastinating. Well, I'm going to do a video this week. Well, I'm going to do a video this week. I just kept pushing it on. Then we started having the pandemic, and then all the other host of other stuff that started happening. And I started having psychic premonitions again, visions and stuff of things starting to come to pass again, like I did when I was a child. And so what it became was, as I started seeing these visions come to pass, like with the presidential election, rise in the concept of martial law and all this Civil War talk, it's just me seeing what I've already seen before. But I started having visions again. And so it was like, I can't run from this. I can't sit there and let this imposter syndrome stop me
Mhm.
from getting the message out. And worst thing comes to worst and stuff. It was a wrong premonition. I interpreted it wrong. No harm, no foul. But I had to get it out there. And then, like I said, talking with both of you, it set me on the path here. And so I became ready. There was no reason to procrastinate because the universe sought me out to do what I wanted to do in the first place. And it's because that intention, I have no other choice. I have physical issues, I got mental health issues, the pandemic's going, I can't work, I haven't been able to get disability. There is no other option except for following my dream. Don't wish for
Yes.
it if you don't want it, and because you'll go through heck to get to it. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Reverend Adam. And I'm so happy. Actually, I've seen your dynamic uh, transformation this year, and it's so inspiring for me to see it because one of the things that I think is something that's very important. Vika still has a lot of wisdom to offer in our modern age. And like what you mentioned, it's actually forgotten. And I'm very grateful that you're brave enough and generous enough to let us see into patterns that you took a great deal of time working on. And Dr. Dukes, were you always like a goal getter in your growing up years? Was there ever a time where you would just, you know what, I'm just gonna pause for now and just gonna enjoy because I've seen you demonstrate one goal after the other. So it's like part of your DNA to just actually keep moving forward.
I just do and follow what makes me happy. It's not an assigned thing of, oh, I need this degree or I have to do this. I do what interests me. That's it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes.
Just guys
Thank
just
you.
happen to be watching it in real time. That's all.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you so much for sharing it, Dr. Dukes. And we know that as we keep following our joy, somehow things will have to add up, and not necessarily it will give you an instant experience where everything is actually orderly. There are still instances in our lives where there seems to be some miscalculations or so called mistakes. and being able to dust ourselves off and move forward when you have that vision and then you know that you have to change your strategy. How do you actually deal with it?
For me, how do I change my strategy?
Yeah.
Take a deep breath and keep moving forward.
Hmm.
Yes.
I mean, there are mistakes happen. Things do get miscalculated. But there is a shift that goes from focusing on logic to focusing on love. So your life feels smoother and feels easier when you're doing things out of love. You just tend to meet more people that are about love. You find more people that just need a little love. That's how life
Yes.
is easier. So when your
Thank you
heart
so
and your mind are conflicted, follow your heart.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Dukes. And I know that we're still going to have another discussion. And I trust that the three of you are still free next week so that we can continue this. And we're going to have a part two of this. We still have so much to talk about. Thank you for our dynamic speakers, Reverend Tina, Dr. Dukes, Reverend Adam. I had such a great time. And what's the one thing, a practical magic tip from the three of you that you would like us to use and take action immediately? Utilize it this week so that when we move the conversation forward next week, we have something to share that's really awesome.
I would say pass it forward. Just pass it forward. People sit there and pay. Customers behind, like Starbucks and stuff like that. Pay it forward, but do that in all your dealings, and you'd be amazed at what comes back in your direction.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Reverend Adam. So pass it forward. I'm going to take note of it. So, whatever it is, uh, when you talked about Starbucks earlier, do you mean like tipping or
Well,
what exactly?
not just tipping, but paying for drinks for other people behind
Pay
you.
it
Just
forward.
out of the goodness of your heart.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm going to try it. How about you, Reverend Dina?
I would say start after you've meditated. Start listening and not second guessing, and doing those inspired things, and then let one lead you to the next and lead you to the next, and watch what happens.
Yes. Thank you for that sharing, Reverend Dina. And I know that it's really amazing to actually take action from that space of inspiration. And I know that next Sunday, I trust that our viewers are actually taking note of the amazing things that we learned today so that when we have this conversation again, we know we have results that are actually, delightful. And you can see the transition from this week to next week. And I'm giving the floor again to Dr. Dukes. I mean, the space again to Dr. Dukes to share that practical magic tip for us.
I would say for the audience, ponder one thing. If you want to know God, know your own hand.
If you want to know God, know
Mhm.
your own.
Know your
It's
own hand.
fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Duke. So, if you want to know God, know your own hand. And these are the three practical magic tips that we got from our amazing inspirational speakers, Dr. Yolanda Dukes, Reverend Tina Brinkley Potts, and Reverend Adam Hayden. Thank you for making time for us again today. And I love what you mentioned, Reverend Tina, about changing the story. It stayed with me. Uh, it's very powerful. Sometimes we don't want to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, but it's actually in conversations like that there's a big space where you light up and actually change the whole situation. Because for me, I love it because when you're an athlete, you think you're executing it well, but of course you can't see everything. There are things which we call blind spots where you need other people to actually put a spotlight on those things. So, uh, and I just want to thank as well Reverend Adam for talking about all those things that you mentioned about your past and shifting them. And Dr. Dukes, you've always been a charming presence, whether I'm the one observing it or Reverend Adam and many other people that have become your clients after your show in Practical Magic. So thank you everyone for sharing your beautiful energy. And let me just thank Unity Philippines and Benedictine International School for supporting us at the start of the program. Hello to Reverend Florence. And I'm going to give the floor to the three of you. Please share something about the University of Metaphysics. Let's start with you, Dr. Dukes.
Journey of a lifetime.
Thank you
Journey
so
of a
much.
lifetime.
Awesome. How about you, Reverend Tina?
Absolutely. Journey of a lifetime is probably one of the best words I've heard. So I second that.
Awesome. And how about you, Reverend Adam?
It honestly gave me the scientific tools to understand why the things I did worked, why my magic spells worked, and it was what I learned with Dr. Masters and with our wonderful International Metaphysical Ministry. It springboarded me.
Yes. Thank you for sharing all that. And you know that I've been talking about University of Metaphysics and metaphysics for almost every day with Wow We Are Good Live, with V81 Radio. So all of you know how much I love metaphysics because I really believe that it can make our lives easier and more fulfilling. And let's talk about the scholarship program. Anything that you guys want to share about the program?
Affordable.
Awesome. And Reverend Tina.
That if anything that you heard today resonates with you, you can see that here you have four different perspectives and four different ways that it's being applied. So, if you're feeling anything that resonates to you, explore the opportunity because it's worth it.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, Reverend Tina. And Reverend Adam, go ahead, please.
I would say, see, because when I started, I was actually under the scholarship, and they worked well with me. The parts in my life and stuff, I wasn't able to, make payments on my courses and stuff, but they knew that, when you give, you'll get. And while I still have, issues paying it up, the thing is that they'll work with you and they're truly beneficial. And I recommend anyone to go ahead and check out the University of Metaphysics or check out the University of Sedona and give it a shot. They'll work with you.
Yes. And it's just a fantastic scholarship program, and it's something that most Filipino middle class families can actually afford. Everybody's welcome. Even our viewers from other parts of the globe take advantage of the scholarship. If you want to have a professional life coaching credential, this is one of the best that I've seen in the last how many years. So just visit the website. And next, please. Of course, I want to thank Dr. Anita Caprice, Dr. Diana Vihumi, Dr. Cindy Palos, Anthony Benton Brown, Dr. Yolanda Dukes, uh, Reverend Tina Brinkley Potts, Reverend Adam Hayden, Jennifer Hill, and Dr. Kathleen Riley. Everyone who has guested in the show. And I trust that Dr. Dukes, Reverend Tina, and Reverend Adam are still available next week. And, we can continue all this discussion about how we're going to make this 2021 work out for our highest good, and at the same time remain committed to getting our goals done and be able to adjust when necessary. So, there's something that I'd like to share with everyone, which I learned from Dr. Catherine Ponder. And Tina knows how much I am a big admirer of her work. And, she constantly talks about how our simple tools that are available to us, like the power of our words, can actually make this space that we hold in this planet, in this universe, can actually be more delightful for us and share that delight to others. So I want to invite everyone to simply close your eyes and maybe you want to affirm it with me out loud. Please join me. Wonderful, wonderful, fortunate us. This is the year for our dreams to come true. This is the year when our ships come in. This is the year when we are glad to live. And this is the year where we thrive. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for Practical Magic. And remember, you are the magic you've been waiting for. Satnam, everyone. Have fun.
Consistently delivering the very best in metaphysics here in Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Till next time, only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Tunog Pinoy, Tatak Pinoy, your all hits, all Pinoy digital radio station in South Manila. This is V81 Radio.
Ito ang paborito ng bawat Pilipino. Basta all hits, all Pinoy, panalo. Merong kwentong iyakan at tawanan. Kahit nasaan ka man, ito'y mapapakinggan. Ready.